Hey, is your business stuck in founder-led sales? Join me on this episode of Profit with a Plan podcast with my guest, Corey Quinn, best-selling author and former CMO of Scorpion, where he took his revenue from 20 million to 150 million in just 6 years. Corey shares his game-changing strategy behind deep specialization and why it's key to scaling your business. We're going to dive into how to choose the right vertical market that can transform your clients' results, your results, and turn your team into true experts and even increase your pricing power. So why is it so tough for business owners to step back from sales, and how to focus on the niche that makes all the difference? So you don't want to miss Corey's insight on escaping the founder trap and scaling the new heights. Tune in for today's practical takeaways and fresh perspectives on growth. Hey, entrepreneurs, are you trying to boost your profits and grow your business? Welcome to Profit with a Plan, where we share strategies to help you scale your company, increase profitability, and set up for a future exit. I'm your host, Marcia, Riner, business growth strategist and the profit booster behind Infinite Profit. I've helped countless entrepreneurs to build highly scalable and profitable sale-ready businesses, which means more power or more profits now and bigger payouts later. My mouth doesn't want to work this afternoon. Today's episode is also sponsored by Infinite Profit, where we don't just talk profit, we deliver it. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit infiniteprofitconsulting.com and start boosting your bottom line today. Hey, but before we get started, I've got really something special for you. And I thought, if you ever wanted to avoid those profit plateaus, operational headaches, and those pesky growth roadblocks, go grab my free Profit Booster playbook at boostingprofit.com. That's where I share 3 essential strategies to elevate your profits quickly. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Enough with the commercials. Our guest today is Corey Quinn. Corey has 17 years of agency experience, including his stint as Scorpion CMO, where he helped grow revenue from 20 million to 150 million in just 6 years. That's a wow, listeners. He's just published his best-selling book, Anyone, Not Everyone, a proven system for agencies to escape the founder-led sales. Today, he helps digital agency founders scale their revenue and profits with deep specialization. You have a feeling what we're going to talk about today? Specialization. Welcome, Corey, to Profit with a Plan podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Marcia, I am so excited to be here.
This has been so fun for me to meet these experts like yourself that have these niches that really, most of us other business owners, we're just, throwing spaghetti on the wall, hoping it sticks, chasing customers, putting out fire. And to have an expert like you come on and really define what specialization is and see the results on the other side, ooh, that just really, it definitely excites me, and I hope the audience gets excited by it as well. But let me ask you a quick question, though. How did you get into marketing and specialization? What was that shift for you?
Great question. Well, I started my career in marketing and advertising very, very young. In fact, I starred in the world's first Chicken McNuggets commercial ever
Get out of
aired
here.
everywhere, anywhere. Yes, I was a child actor at 7 years old here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, down the street from me. I
Nice.
was recruited to, become an actor, and I did that for a couple years. Was on a bunch of national commercials, big brands. I did Igloo Ice Chest, a bunch of McDonald's, a bunch of stuff, and so I got my start pretty early in the advertising world. Luckily, I think I decided to go back to being a normal kid and stop acting, and so I left that world behind. And then ever since I left college, I've been in the broadcast media marketing space. When it comes to my agency experience, for those folks who have an agency background or work at an agency, I've been in the agency space, as you mentioned, for over 17 years. I started off in sales. I love sales. We do what they call
Oh no,
consult.
you're not one of them. Wait a minute. Ooh, no, I'm kidding.
I don't know if one of them, I'm not sure exactly
I'm
what you're
just teasing.
referring to. Yeah. But I will share with you that I started off doing in the agency space, selling PPC and SEO, all these marketing terms, online marketing terms to large brands such as Lululemon and Remax and Hyundai and all these great things. Loved sales, made my way up into the sales through the sales channel, eventually became a sales manager. And then, as you mentioned, most recently, I was the chief marketing officer of this amazing little agency that I joined in 2015. And we were able to grow revenue 8 times in 6 short years. It was bananas. I was not as gray as I am now. When I started, it was a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of late nights. It was amazing. I would never replace it with anything. It was a really wonderful time. And then since I left a couple of years ago, I decided to take all the wonderful insights and learnings, both from that experience as a chief marketing officer, as well as my entire career, and pour into a book, which is really a 5-step process to go from what I call a generalist, someone who serves businesses of all shapes and sizes, into what I call a vertical market specialist using deep specialization. And by the way, for the listeners, this isn't just for agencies. This is for service-based businesses. This is for product-based businesses. This is for SaaS businesses. This works for any type of business.
You know what? The connector that I think I hear in all of this is that you grew up as you started in front of the camera, but then you went into sales and then you went into marketing.
Yes.
And I think that those have always been two separate departments. Marketing says we're going to generate the lead, and then sales says I got to close the lead based on the marketing and what the company works. And oftentimes they're butting heads because they're not talking the same thing. And what your background tells me is that you're able to marry the two and have it be seamless through the transaction. And better salesmen know how to sell when they know what the marketing pitch was and the buyers started to hear to open the door. And it seems like you nailed that.
There's nothing worse for a salesperson than being handed a lead who came in on some kind of offer or guarantee that the salesperson has no idea like what's going on. So
exactly,
I agree. The way I define marketing is taking sales, which is a one-on-one conversation, to a one-to-many. Right? You're just marketing.
Interesting.
You're doing sales on a one-to-many basis. And
so you're coming from the sales first into marketing rather than marketing first into sales.
Exactly. And the way that it's so interesting because it's very true about my approach and my philosophy about how to do this, which is very sort of buyer centric or vertical market centric. You start with the buyer and then you begin to understand the key pain points and the key attributes, what they care about. And then you build a marketing strategy based on that. That's where you start, is the buyer.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And it works better, right? You get better conversions and profits and numbers and everything behind it that comes from it. And I think that's the biggest problem that people do is they go out and they start a business and they say, okay, I got this thing and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to sell this thing. Now I got to find buyers to buy my thing rather than going, oh, the buyers have a problem and I think I could solve that problem for them, which is polar opposite.
Yeah. Let me tell you an example. A friend of mine, he was on my podcast, interviewed him. His name is Alex. And he very similarly started a business, a web design business a long time ago now. And, it was one of these things where he just didn't want to have a job. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. So what did he do? He just started a web design company, very ambitious guy. And of course, he let all of his college friends know, his high school friends know, his neighborhood, the neighborhood kids know. And of course, he started building websites for everybody. He built websites for the local furniture store. He built one for the local ice cream truck guy. And it was great. Like he had revenue and he started hiring employees until he realized that he was building websites for all these different types of businesses, eventually started selling some marketing stuff. And he realized that he had built a business completely customized. Every client had a different product, a different process. And of course, his clients, or sorry, his team started resenting every new client that got brought in because they had to relearn a whole new business line. In fact, he told me the frustration he felt. The problem yeah, exactly. The thing that he felt was that he was going into another sales meeting, one after the other, because of course it was founder led because he had to close the deal and he knew what to promise and whatnot. And he would scratch his head and saying, okay, what is this business again? Do they want patients? Do they want clients? Do they want, foot traffic, right? And he realized that he had built this monster of a business that had no ability to really be systematized and process driven. Therefore, it was completely dependent on him.
Oh, dang. Isn't that a problem? Listen to that, business owners. You are the business, right? That's terrible. That's a terrible place to be in.
There is a silver lining. It was at that moment when he realized, hey, I need to specialize. And he went through a process where he ultimately decided to specialize in medical practices because he wanted to work for businesses that made a bigger impact in the world. And as a result of doing that specialization, he focused his business and just started focusing again on medical practices and went to the conferences and wrote blog posts about that and so on and so forth. As a result of that focus, he now has a very profitable 8-figure agency that is dominating in the market. He has the freedom that he wants. He has the income he wants. He has built a business that, frankly, a lot of investors would love to buy, but that he doesn't want to sell.
Yeah. And it's easy to systematize, and that he's not involved in, as I say, swinging the hammer every day. He sits back and leads the team because the team has a process to follow all the time.
That's right. And that is a real big value proposition that is sort of inherent in the vertical specialization, in that if you solve the same problem for the same audience over and over and over and over again, a lot of things become much easier. You get better at what you do. You're able to remove yourself as a founder because if you are selling to, specifically in the sales context, if you're selling the same product to the same person, you don't need the founder to do that sale. In fact, when I arrived at Scorpion in 2015, I remember going into the sales floor and listening to some of the sales calls. And what I learned was, Scorpion, by the way, for context, they were focused on attorneys. Okay. What I learned was
good name for attorneys, right? The Scorpion.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Aggressive marketing. It worked perfectly. And so these attorneys would call into Scorpion, call into the sales floor. And what I didn't hear, which was interesting, was, well, who is the founder? Can I talk to the founder? What's up with the story? What's the story behind the founder? They didn't talk about the founder at all. It was never a part of the conversation ever. It was not a part of their buying criteria. What they cared about is, do you understand the problem that I have? Have you solved it for others? And can you solve it for me? And as a result of that specialization, they were able to do a magical thing called a one-call close, right?
Wow.
Call close for, big money, right? And so that was when that opened my eyes to the power of specialization in a business's ability to begin to streamline and separate from that sort of that founder-led sales motion.
Well, you know what? The other thing is that you mentioned it just kind of as an afterthought, that this guy has this business that somebody wants to buy really bad and he doesn't want to sell it. That's because it's a perfectly run company that the owner doesn't have to go along with the business to make the business run. And that's why it's so attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like if you were an investor coming in to buy a business and, oh, by the way, everything is run through the founder, or, if you need to get new revenue, it has to deal with the founder. You're probably not going to be too excited to buy that company, because if you incentivize the founder to take their money and ride off in the sunset, what have you really bought, right? A bunch of employees and
a headache.
About a headache, right? You have to figure out how to take what they have and make it more systematized and make it more streamlined.
Exactly. I love it. Okay, so here's the biggest question that's ringing in my ears, and I'm sure all the audience is listening is having the same thought, right? But if I pick one
Yeah.
then I'm going to miss out on the others.
Oh, it's so true. Well, here's the interesting dynamic is that most people are like Alex, the one I mentioned, who is the business owner who gets into business, puts out the word, and says yes to everybody. That is the common way that people get into business, especially in a service-based business, right? CPAs, attorneys, all those things. All of that is great. And I'm actually a fan of doing it that way. The challenge is you'll reach a certain level, typically reach a certain level whereby the chaos in your business prevents you from continuing to grow, right?
Exactly.
And what happens in that spot is you'll typically have a founder who says, well, we just need to do more marketing or we need to hire more people or whatever. And then that of course fails, right? More. That of course fails because it doesn't resolve the issue of the chaos and based in the having too many different types of businesses. It's only until they realize, okay, this specialization thing, I have to do something about it. I have to start saying no to all these different people. I have to figure out who to say yes to. And it only comes, in my experience, that only becomes a choice that's actually physically on the table when they've banged their head against the wall too many times to realize that there's no other real way to get there. That's my experience.
Love it.
But I think the thing emotionally that gets them over the hump from resistant to specializing to really bought in is actually doing the numbers. I'm going to give you we'll do some quick math here together.
Cool.
Okay.
Let me get out my calculator.
I couldn't do this in my head. So let's see if the audience will walk along with us. So let me ask you, Marcia, just take a wild guess. How many residential plumbing businesses are there in the United States today?
Oh my gosh. Couple 100,000.
Yeah. So the number is based on my current research, it is 157,000 residentially focused plumbing businesses.
Wow.
And so the context here is, let's just say we focused our business. Instead of working with any type of business, we said we want to go after plumbers. We really, we see an opportunity there. We like working with them. Maybe have some evidence of working with them. If you were able through focusing to get 1%, just one little sliver of that entire market, you'd have 1,570 plumbing clients, which is a lot of clients.
Yeah.
And let's say for argument's sake that they spent $10,000 an entire year with you.
Okay.
That means each year, right? Recurring. That means that you'd have a $15.7 million business, 1%, $10,000, solving the same problem for the same type of client over and over and over again. So what have you built? A very highly repeatable process, a business that has great retention because you're specialized, you're really good at it because you've had a lot of reps, and you have great profitability because you don't have to hire very expensive people to run the business. In fact, because it's so process driven, you're able to use a lot of software to run the business.
That's only 1%. That's only 1%
You're making
of
my
the
point for me.
possibility
Yes.
out there. Which, what if you did great and you doubled your practice and you had 2%?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, that's huge.
Right. And so that's the kind of
So is the trick to find a big enough market, or is the trick to find a specialized skill? Good
question. So you can think of it in one of a couple of ways. So some ways, there's two real ways that people specialize their business. So I'm going to generalize here for a minute. Sure. You could specialize in what you do, right? I'm a CPA. I work with businesses and I just do the CPA work. That's a specialization in what you do. Let's say it on the horizontal axis. You could also be on a vertical axis. If you think of like an XY axis, I work only with, let's say entrepreneurs, right? And so that's what I do. I solve problems for entrepreneurs. That's who I help. Where you get the magic is where you say, I specialize in being a CPA for entrepreneurs. Right. That's where you're able to be very, very clear in the marketplace. Like, oh, I need a CPA and I'm an entrepreneur. Typically, that's where you get the Rolodex moment. Oh, I know a guy at CPA who specializes in entrepreneurs. Let me put you in touch, type of thing, right? So that's more of a positioning exercise. The magic, I think, is when you are focusing in on a vertical market first, because here's the thing, when you become expert at solving a type of problem, a growth problem or an accounting problem for a vertical market, the tools may come and go. For example, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple years ago, there was a website called Vine. It's like TikTok today,
I don't
but it was
remember
owned
Vine.
by
I mean, I'm
Twitter.
old enough to remember Vine, but I don't remember Vine.
It's okay. It's okay. It was kind of nichey, but it was, if you think about it, you're familiar with TikTok, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone knows TikTok, right? So it was a early version of TikTok. It was owned by Twitter. In any event, really short, fun videos, right? 30-second videos, whatever. Or I think it was 10-second videos. It was great. It was a great platform. Well, what happens if you're a business that says, I work on this platform. My positioning is I am a Vine marketing agency. What happens when Vine goes away? Your business goes away. You have to start from scratch, right?
Yes, I
And so
only sell VHS cartridges and my company's named Blockbuster, right? Or
exactly.
I only sell cameras and film and my company is Kodak.
Right. Exactly. So when you become attached to, or you tie your business's future to a platform or a software, even SEO, I mean, who knows what the future is with AI and how that's going to change, consumer behaviors. So, which is why I'm a fan, generally speaking. I don't have a problem with SEO firms or anything. I have a lot of great friends who run them, but my advice or my preference was, if I was to give advice to my son, who's only 10 years old, so he's not ready for this advice, is to focus on solving problems for a specific vertical market, because the tools will come and go. What the clients are hiring you for is your specialization, solving problems for them.
So, and the only way you're really going to get well known and good at it is to continuously solve that same type of problem.
Correct.
Right? So think about the law space, right? I know tons of lawyers. They all the good ones tend to specialize in a certain lane of law. Law is huge, but they happen to be estate attorneys, injury attorneys, right? I mean, because they know that space so well that they can solve the person's problems because they know it really well.
Right. It goes back to the old saying, like, if you're going to have brain surgery, you don't want your general practitioner to go in with the scalpel, right? You want the best in the world, the person who only does that. In fact, I did have surgery, interestingly, pretty invasive surgery. And the surgeon who I luckily went with, he is the best in the world at doing this particular type of surgery. And I was warned that he has very poor bedside manner.
Oh, no.
I don't care if he's the biggest jerk on the planet. As long as he's the best at doing this surgery, I'm good with it, right?
He comes in with Coke bottle glasses and shaky hands going, I'm going to work on your brain.
Well, I don't care if he's got that reputation, right? And I think that that's the interesting thing about a vertical market, is that when you target a vertical market, you do great work. It's like every vertical is like a village, right? It's relatively small. Everyone kind of knows everyone else. Everyone's like 1 degree of separation. And when you do great work and you repetitively in a vertical market, word spreads. You have this wonderful word of mouth and you get wonderful referrals. There's this thing in business called the day one list. Have you heard of this? The day one list?
No.
So Harvard Business Review did an article and a research project around researching how businesses buy. What they found is that 80 to 90% of businesses have a day one list, which is they have a short list of businesses who they're going to interview to see who to hire for the project. If you think about, like, for instance, if you were going to go and buy a car, you're probably not going to go test drive 40 different cars. You probably today have an idea of maybe a small handful of cars that you would test drive before you made the purchase. You may already know what car you want, right? Same thing is true in the business context. Businesses have a short list of options that they want to interview and they want to look at. So the challenge for any business is, how do I get on that short list?
Oh,
right?
I like that.
There's 2 ways to get on the day one list. Oh, and by the way, 90% of the businesses buy or hire a company on the day one list. So it is a very valuable list to be on.
That's huge to think of it that way. And I mean, when you think about your buyer's journey and where they're going, they're doing all the pre-research. They're
Yeah.
they're they're prepared when they put their RFP out,
Yeah, exactly.
to interview, and they're going after their short list. And if you're
That's
lucky
right.
to be on, you've already checked off a lot of boxes. They're just kind of
Correct.
going through the motion of do they like you or not, right?
Correct. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, I like that.
So there's
Okay.
two ways. There's two ways to get on the day one list. They've worked with you before, or or you've been referred to them by someone else who they
Pretty
trust.
powerful. That's pretty powerful. And if you haven't worked with them before and someone hasn't referred them, then you're probably a pretty shiny, sparkly unicorn that's just popped up on their
Today.
radar. But I mean, they
Right.
have to have already heard about you.
Correct. To consider you.
Wow.
So the way to be referred is to leverage this social networks that exist within a vertical market, do great work, and make sure that people are talking about you. And
Mm.
beauty, again, of these vertical markets is they have these natural places where people congregate, right? You go to the annual conferences, you go to the associations, you have online forums. My wife is a psychiatrist. Okay. Guess where she spends her free time? On the mom's psychiatry network on Facebook. It's like a private group,
Wow.
right? They all talk about psychiatry things and being a mom and so on and so forth. So these networks are natural. They're naturally occurring. People congregate around their own vertical market. And that's what you want to infiltrate as a vertical specialist.
Mm. Wow, we didn't even get into the juicy stuff here of how do you do all of that,
I
because I
know.
know that's what's burning on people's mind. But looking at the
Yes.
clock, I'm thinking, okay, we got about 5 minutes left here.
Okay.
So you gave us a really juicy thing. First of all, I mean, I don't even know if I want to waste my time in saying how do we choose a vertical market, How do we there's a dozen questions here. So
Yeah.
if we're coming in and we've already chosen our vertical market, we decide that we're
Right.
going to go with your plumber's example and go for that
Right.
1%,
Love it.
and we're going there and we take the step and do what your wife is we get on their association, and
Mhm.
we get into the Facebook group of
Yeah.
plumbers, right?
Yeah.
Then how do we start to really infiltrate and get our name
Yes.
out as the expert?
That's such a good question. So, um, I'll be brief, but there are three legs to the stool when it comes to how to go to market, how to build your practice, how to build your business full of this vertical market. There's inbound, outbound, and relationship-based marketing. Inbound, really easily or really quickly, is it's a little bit different than how HubSpot defines inbound for us marketers. It's effectively, if I'm a buyer, where am I going to research different options to put onto my day one list? Okay. So it's probably paid search, doing content marketing, starting a podcast, like all of those great things. Make sure you're findable when your target audience is in the process of buying.
Okay. So you
But
pop up on search when they're searching for you.
exactly. The challenge, of course, is that inbound, that's typically inbounds, only 3% of any market is going inbound in any quarter. Tiny little fraction of the people you want to serve are
And there's a
actually,
lot of people out there that are trying to
and there's a
pop
lot
their
of
head up and
options.
looking, right?
Exactly, which is why outbound has to be a part of your strategy. So outbound can be very difficult. I've
Very
spent
expensive.
very expensive. We actually cracked the code at Scorpion. We did something that's called gift-based outbound.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. What it does is it will transform the cold outreach from frigid cold to warm. And here's why. You send a thoughtful gift ahead of the cold call directly to the VIP person that you're trying to influence. You
Ooh,
send them things like gourmet cookies. You send them things like a video brochure or maybe a book that you wrote, something that is thoughtful and makes them feel like a VIP. Can't be any, cheap logo swag and whatnot. It has to be
right.
something that is thoughtful, it's unique, it's striking, it leaves a great impression. When you call on those, you get a much different dynamic from the typical cold call.
Nice. Nice. Okay. I like that idea. Another use for your book, right?
Exactly. In fact, I've got a box with my book and a bunch of cookies going out to a bunch of agencies this week. So, uh,
Nice. I like it.
yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
And,
Okay.
and
So,
so, yeah,
I mean, I used to do that in financial services. I would
exactly.
during tax season hit up a bunch of CPAs and bring them tax survival kits, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Perfect.
so yeah, really good idea. Okay. So
Mhm.
that's one way you've cracked the code, right?
Like the code. And then, so that's the only way we do outbound is gift based. Send a gift first. And you don't just send one gift. 90% of the companies you send a gift to are probably going to ghost you. 10% will actually meet with you, but 90%, and you send them another gift in 90 days, and then another gift in 90 days, and then another gift. You keep sending gifts for up to 3 years. There's a whole
Wow.
strategy
So
and
that's
a
a
work.
long sales cycle to
It
get
is a
the
long
to get
sales.
more numbers, right?
Correct.
But exponentially, you're only getting the first 10% or an opportunity at the first
Correct.
10%. But
That's right.
exponentially, if you send a second gift, you might get the next 12 or 13 or 15%.
Exactly. Exactly. And it builds.
Mm.
So you get that. And then the third leg to the stool is relationship-based marketing. People want to buy belly to belly, let's call it, right? They want to actually see you and they want to go out and have a cocktail with you. They want to have experience with you. And that's why taking a vertical marketing approach is really powerful in that regard because you know which conferences to go to, you know which events to host and to spend time at. And gosh, it really underlines this idea behind deep specialization, which is that you really have to like the people that you're serving. Because guess what? You're going to be spending a lot of time with them.
Yeah. So if you go find that plumber, when they bend over and they show you their tail end
Right.
and, or you might not like the conversations that go on in
Right.
plumber
May just bore
conventions,
you.
it
It
might
may
not be
not be
the
your
area
thing.
for you.
Right. Exactly. And that's important because the real way to do this is not to be stuck behind your keyboard trying to send, spammy email. It's going out and building
Glad
a
handing.
genuine relationship with the actual people in the market.
I think the other part of that third leg, though, that really peaked for me
Yeah.
was when you had that Rolodex moment and
Yes.
you were able to go, oh, anybody could connect the dots by giving you that referral by saying, oh, I know a guy that does just
Correct.
that.
Correct.
I know
Yeah.
a gal that does just that. And the only way you could do that is by making sure the people around you know that you serve one client and you do that, right? You're
I'll
an
make it
ex
even
that
better.
you're an attorney that serves injury accidents for
Yeah.
ladies that get hit by Uber. I don't know.
That's exactly
Um,
right. No, you're exactly right, Marcia. I think there's one more aspect I'll throw in here, which I think is
yeah.
interesting. Is you have golden eggs, and then you have the goose that lays the golden eggs, right? And
Yeah.
so the golden egg, of course, is the client, right? It's the wonderful relationship you build with them. But within a vertical market, there are the goose that lays the golden eggs for you. In any social network, especially in vertical markets, there are what Malcolm Gladwell called mavens. And mavens are people who have just a lot of social capital in the industry. Everyone looks to them, see what are they doing, who do they like, so on and so forth. That's the person that you want to have on your team talking
Mm,
about because everyone's going to them asking about who should they work with.
mm, that's powerful.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, Corey, we could talk on this for days. This is
Yeah.
so good. And
Yeah.
I know that there's still listeners sitting back there going, but
Yeah.
if I only go with them, then I'm going to miss out on everybody else. And
Mhm.
and I think it's, bigger bat maybe a heavier book to hit them over the head with.
I'll tell you what my approach is. They're not ready yet.
Yes, I agree. I
They're not
agree.
ready. They'll
But
be
yeah,
ready
that phrase, the
soon.
riches
But
are in the niches, right?
it's true. And I think it feels good to say that, but it's once you say, okay, I want a niche, okay,
It's scary
but
as
then
hell.
what? But then what? Exactly. That's why this book that I wrote is a guide for folks who say, okay, I want to niche down and I want it, but I need a plan. I need to know what to do. That's why I wrote it.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the big thing. That's the $1,000,000 question. Okay, I'm going to take the step of faith. I'm going to step out over the ledge and say, okay, now what do I do? My whole business model in my mind is now going to change, which is perfect for this time of year, right?
Exactly.
And to have it change, but to go, now what? How do I do that? Where do I go?
Right.
So tell
What
us
do I
more
do?
about your book. Where can listeners find out more about you and get access to your book?
Beautiful. Well, Marcia, I have a special offer for just your listeners. They can go to anyoneNotEveryone.com, download the audiobook, the Audible version, the audiobook of my book, the entire book right now. You'll also get an amazing workbook that has worksheets and videos and checklists and all these great resources by going again to anyoneNotEveryone.com. Start downloading it, start listening to it right now. Get access to the 5 steps, all the wisdom that we put in the book. It's all available for everyone right now.
Awesome. That's cool. Well, you know what? I'm definitely going after it because I'm one of those ones that go, yeah, I niche. And then I always seem to go in and then widen out and then go in and then widen out.
I know.
I know. It's one of those. we have to.
You're normal, right? I mean, it's like we're all human, right?
Nobody's ever said I was normal. Thank you. That was very kind. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's scary, but I think that's really where you're going to get that expert status. You're going to have people be able to refer you because you specialize in one space. And, when you get into a community of doctors, they're going to go, oh, hey, this gal Marcia helped me. This guy Corey helped me. Oh, really? Who was that? And they talk. So
Exactly.
Great opportunities come when you do that, I think.
That's
awesome. Awesome. Wow, listeners, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you picked up some valuable insight and some actionable ideas that can help you make your business more profitable. And I know Corey's book is going to really move the needle for you. If you're ready and you're sitting on the fence going, those last 5 people I worked with, customers I worked with, they were all 5 different people. And I'd rather just have a process to be able to work with one kind of client. That doesn't mean you can never work with the people on the outside, but you can choose to work with the people on the outside of that circle. And you can get a whole lot more specific working with the people inside that space. So I love it. I'm definitely going to go get the audio version of his book and start reading away, listening away.
Please do.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, talking about books, I've got a Profit Booster playbook that you can go grab for free if you're interested in taking your business to the next level. You can go get that at boostingprofit.com, where I break down the steps to drive profit, streamline your operation, and prepare your business for future growth and that ultimate sale. Don't forget to subscribe to the show. We don't want to miss any future episodes of Profit with a Plan. And you can find us on any of the podcast platforms. We're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thank you.